Hi, I'm Tommy, and I'm a professional paleontologist. By day, I use the latest data science techniques to reconstruct ecological and evolutionary changes from the fossil record. But by night, I investigate cryptids, the paranormal, mediumship, the occult, politics, history, philosophy, and even God himself. You know, all the things that good little scientists are supposed to avoid. If you want to join me on my journey, friend, be so kind as to like and subscribe. And welcome to Creepy Puppets Presents. All right, so in my ever continuing trend of forgetting important dates in politics, I am making this the morning of the election for the Democratic primary in the New York mayoral race. So I'm also going to have to do this in one take because I'm having some pretty bad technical difficulties, and I need to minimize the amount of editing I have to do. My mouse gave out on me yesterday, and I can't get a new one until tomorrow. So I am using my my Chromebook as a remote desktop. I'm using the mouse on my Chromebook for my computer. It's just a mess. All right, so if you've never seen one of my astrology videos before, I'm doing research in paleoinformatics, which is the application of data science to paleontology. And because of that, I look at medieval astrology, not modern astrology, newspaper astrology, like that's all crap, but medieval and ancient astrology, and I see that what they're doing is primitive data science, primitive statistics. I recognize so much between what they're doing and what I'm doing that I decided to be able to test it, and I've developed a model based on medieval astrology that I have used to predict elections, and I've predicted 3 elections now. The most successful one was the prediction in this past year, the 2020 presidential election, where I predicted that, yes, Biden was more likely to win by a very narrow margin, but that it was going to be a nail-biter and down to the wire to the very end. And all the pollsters, 538, they were saying, oh, it's going to be a big blowout for Biden. And it turned out not to be. And we didn't actually know who the president was going to be for a few days after that. So anyway, I did the horoscope for, I can't see how well this is doing. I did the horoscope for 9 p.m. That's when the polls close in New York City tonight. And you'll notice something really interesting. So usually when we're trying to figure out who's going to be on top and who's going to be on the bottom, so, which part of the horoscope represents which party, usually the party out of power is represented by the 4th house, and the party in power is represented by the 10th house. What's so interesting here, so this is Libra, and Libra represents justice, and it's ruled by Venus, which represents compassion. So the party in power and sort of removed from the people is and it's all one party, it's a primary right, but the implication is that, like, this horoscope is saying, like, Bill de Blasio is compassionate and just, and his opposition, and, that idea that's with the people is represented by Aries. Aries is naked aggression without duplicitousness. It also, being ruled by Mars, it also represents cops and military people, soldiers. So, so interesting that one of the main people in it is a cop, Adams, right? So what's so interesting to me about this is, if I had to pick who is the more compassionate candidate, I would say Andrew Yang, who's still most likely in second place. is definitely the more compassionate of the two main candidates. So because of that, I'm going to take this Libra to represent Andrew Yang, as he is, the one to carry on de Blasio's legacy of compassion and justice. And full disclosure, I like Andrew Yang. He's probably the American politician who comes closest to my own politics, who is not an open communist. And I'm going to take Aries in the fourth house to represent Mr. Adams. So I turn through the dignity tables, which you can see here. And so the way this works is you calculate the dignity statistic from tables. I have my own book of shadows of sorts, in which I have the tables that I find to be particularly useful. Anyway, so you can see here again, if we take Venus to represent Andrew Yang, then that's negative 1.5. And if we take Mars to represent Adams, that's negative 1. So both are bad, both are close. But Venus is slightly worse. And what I take that to mean is that it's going to be a close election between Adams and Yang, which could go either way, but there is a slight natural advantage to Mr. Adams. And I love when the predictions we get from doing the math are, compatible with what the majority of polls are saying. I do want to, before I wrap this up, bring your attention to to some complicating factors. So there's Jupiter is quite powerful. Jupiter often represents the economy. Saturn is actually not as powerful. I mean, it's in rulership, but it's not as powerful because of some accidental dignities, which usually represents a desire for change. So there's actually a less of a desire for change than one would expect. And finally, I think the biggest complicating factor here is Mercury. Mercury is the most powerful planet in this horoscope. And Mercury represents scholarship, academia, technocracy. And, if there's any candidate that I think resonates most with Mercury, that's probably also Andrew Yang. So I think the Mercury is, a wild card, and maybe its presence here and its strength here indicates that there could be some kind of hidden advantage for Yang. But I still think ultimately, based on this data and my experience doing political astrology, that it is marginally more likely for an Adams victory. All right, that's it for now, folks. Have a nice day. And if you're in New York, go out and vote.